Hey, I'm John Downs. Pleased to meet you. Today I'm going to show you how to add flares into photographs using Photoshop. It's a technique I wouldn't usually use, I'll be honest, but it is pretty cool, and I hope you enjoy.
Okay, what we're going to do today is add some flares over a couple of portraits of mine. Before we get into this, I'm just going to show you 10 flare photos. All of these were produced using just an iPhone 3GS. So basically, just to show you that any camera will do. There's a link below where you can download these and use as you wish later. Now we'll take a quick look at the portraits I'm going to put the flares on. Here's one of Theresa I took on one of my workshops. And here's one of Natasha I took on one of our shoots. These models are absolutely amazing to work with, and I totally recommend both of them. So first we're going to add flares to the warmer toned photo of Theresa. The idea behind this is to match the flare colour that we're adding to a colour that's already in the photo. To do this, we'll use the colour picker to set the foreground colour. In the colour picker we need to make sure the brightness mode is selected by clicking on the B radio button. Then we try and find the lightest area of the skin. Sometimes this can take 2 or 3 goes. The thing to look for is the highest brightness percentage as you're moving around the skin. And then we push the brightness slider up to 100% and click OK. And you can see here that the foreground colour is set to a lighter version of our model's skin colour. Now what we're going to do is select a flare photo to put over our portrait. Okay, let's have a quick look through. Quite like the look of this one. It's a little bit more blue than our portrait, but we can sort that out later. What we'll do is drag it straight into Photoshop over our portrait, and then the very first thing we do to it is convert it to a smart object. The reason we do this is to reduce the degradation of the image when we resize and transform. Just right click and select Convert to Smart Object. Once you've done this, you'll see the Smart Object icon on the bottom right hand side. To make the flares more transparent, we're going to adjust the blending mode. I tend to default to using Lighten or Screen for this kind of work. Yeah, I think Lighten is probably the best one for this one. Now we're going to resize and transform the layer with the flares on. To do this, we have to put it in transformation mode, using Command and T on Mac, or if you're on Windows, Control and T. We can move this flare photo around wherever we like, resize it, stretch it, rotate it, do whatever you fancy. Be creative, have at it. I'm quite liking the look of that there. That may well work. Now you'll probably notice that the flares look a little bit on the blue side here and there. Just here and here as well. So now we need to do some colour correction on the flares. And this is where the colour picking comes in that we did earlier on. So first what we'll do is add a hue saturation adjustment layer. Then what we'll do is click the colorize checkbox. And this colorizes the whole photo to the foreground colour chosen in the colour picker earlier. Now the photo is all the same colour. So what we need to do now is only apply this adjustment layer to the flare photo below it. To ensure that these colour changes only apply to the flare layer, we're going to apply a clipping mask to it. To do this, we press Command Option G on Mac or Control Alt G on Windows while the adjustment layer is selected. Now you may notice that the flares are all the same colour. To make it look a little bit more natural, what we'll do is we'll lower the opacity to introduce some of the original variation in colour. How much you adjust the opacity by is totally a matter of taste, really. That looks pretty reasonable. I think we'll leave it there. We have a little bit of colour variation in those flares now as well, which is good to see. Let me just move this flare up a little bit just to get rid of that little bit on the top right hand side. There you go, that's a lot better. And there you have it, first photo done. Okay, now we're going to do the photo of Natasha. So similar to the other photo, first thing we'll do now is choose the foreground colour based on the colour of the lighter area of our model's skin. As you can see, the brightness mode is already set in the colour picker, so we don't need to change it. And similar to last time, we'll try and find the lightest patches of skin. That looks pretty good. Again, we push the brightness percentage up to 100 and click OK. Now we're going to put a flare over our portrait of Natasha. Yeah, that's pretty cool. We'll go with that. So same as before, we'll convert it straight to a smart object by right-clicking the flare photo in the Layers panel and selecting Convert to Smart Object. For this one, we'll use the screen blending mode. It gives it a slightly more hazy look. Next, we're going to transform the flare layer using Command T for Mac or Control T for Windows. I'll just jiggle this layer around a bit until I'm happy with it. That's looking pretty good. When you use screen blending mode, you're more likely to notice the edge of the flare photo, as you can see here. We'll sort that out in a little bit, but for now we'll deal with the colour by adding a hue saturation adjustment layer and clicking the lovely colorized checkbox. And lo and behold, everything has turned the same colour again, a lovely shade of blue in this case. As before, we're going to create a clipping mask. This will limit the impact of the adjustment layer to just the flare photo. This time we'll create the clipping mask by right-clicking on the adjustment layer and selecting Create Clipping Mask. We'll now change the opacity of the adjustment layer to fine-tune the colour of the flares. That looks pretty good. For the next bit, we're going to get rid of that line on the flare. To do that, we're going to group the flare and the adjustment layer together first by selecting both layers, right-clicking and selecting Group from Layers, then naming the group. In this case, Flare 1. Now we can get rid of this pesky line by adding a layer mask to the group we've just created and using the gradient tool as so. And there we are. Another flare added to another photo. I'm just going to end this with a little slideshow showing a few applications of these flares on these two portraits. I hope you enjoy.